If you are not consistently sending out an email newsletter, you are leaving some big money on the table. That's why in this video, I want to give you some email newsletter growth strategies that work to grow my own email newsletter. And at the end of this video, I'm going to give you some ideas that you can use if you're sitting there and don't even know what to put or what to write and talk about in your email newsletter. Hi there, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Katelyn Redding, and if you're new here, 6 years ago, I started my very first online business that found me deep and heavy in burnout. At that point, I vouched that I would never hit that wall again and decided to find ways that I can make passive income, true passive income, and turn my business into a passive income making machine. I got to work, and now I'm on a mission to help other entrepreneurs create the same results in their own business. So if you want to learn how you can generate more leads, more cash consistently, then make sure to hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell as well, because I post a new video every single week. And a bonus to you is I've bottled up my entire method that I use to create a passive income making machine in my business and put it into 3 steps, and I'm giving that training for free. You can just go below this video in the description and learn my 3-step stop the scroll method that turns leads into cash automatically through funnels. And remember guys, this is absolutely free to you. Okay, so let's jump into some strategies to help you grow your own email newsletter. The same strategies that I have used to grow mine. And again, a bonus to you is if you're sitting there and you don't even know what you should be putting in your newsletter, I'm gonna give you a bunch of ideas at the end of the video so that you can go and take these strategies plus these ideas and run with it. Now, I wanna also point out this video because in this video, I talk about how to actually grow your email list. So again, today we're talking about your newsletter and how to grow that newsletter and making sure that people are not only opening the emails, they're reading, they're engaging, but they're also converting into a paid client, customer, member, student, whatever. Your enrollments are going up because of your newsletter. That's what we'll talk about this video. But that video, we are sharing more list building and list growing strategies. So definitely as soon as this video is done, you're gonna just head over and watch that one, okay? Now, by far, the best email newsletters out there are ones that are coming from an intrinsic point of view versus obviously an extrinsic point of view. So meaning that it comes from more of an internal voice, internal tone, or like the internal parts of your business. So in this first strategy is to make sure that you keep it personable. Not only personable to the person watching it, but personable to the content, to the information, to what you're actually sharing. It should feel a little bit more private or personable, again, personal, whatever, should feel a little bit more private with what you're actually sharing with your listeners, your audience. Now, the reason why I say that this is the one that performs the well is because your newsletter is your key communicator. And we'll talk about that in a second, but because it's that key communicator, it's a way that you're going to get to know the person behind the email. So when you subscribe to my newsletter, for example, and if you want to join my newsletter where I share a whole bunch of CEO secrets, but also like the behind the scenes of my business, you can go ahead and subscribe to it. There's a link below this video. But when you join my circle, as I call it, my newsletter, you really are part of this high level circle of entrepreneurs where I am giving you an intimate place, an intimate seat in my close vicinity, in my close circle. It feels like, and I intended it for it to be this way, it feels like you're joining me around the fire with a big glass of red wine and we are just sharing from the heart. So the reason why this performs so well is because, again, it's a very intimate place to be. It's a very private, personable, and very conversational. Now, the second I'll be more common sense way to grow your email newsletter is to actually promote it. Now, I know I can't believe I'm saying this or including it as one of my strategies, but you'd be surprised how many people think that by growing just their email list, they don't necessarily have to concentrate or focus on growing their newsletter. So when people are joining your email list, they aren't necessarily joining your newsletter. Now, you can have your newsletter to be its own individual funnel with its own individual entry point. So just like how I mentioned, you can join my newsletter, I'm promoting mine, and you can go ahead and go to that page, join in, and you'll be sent right into where you'll be sent all my newsletters, right? However, if you join one of my other funnels, say you decided to watch my free training and you join that, you're not automatically added to my newsletter list. Now, this is kind of jumping ahead to my third point, but what it comes down to is when you're promoting your newsletter, you need to still promote it as you would any other piece of content you're sharing. So as I would promote, say when this YouTube video goes up, I'm going to obviously share it on my Instagram stories and share snippets of it on my other social media platforms. You want to do the same thing with your newsletter. And what you really want to try to create is almost a level of FOMO where people are intrigued to join because they're curious, but they also feel like they are missing out on something. Now, like I mentioned, because your newsletter plays this one-to-one key communicator tool, when you have social media platforms like YouTube, where there is no really good like DM system, or Instagram, like I had mentioned even in previous videos, Instagram has a place like the DMs, a private messenger tool where you can have one-on-one conversation. However, YouTube, for example, or podcasts or blogs or anything like that, they don't have that. So your newsletter is where you bring in this communication tool, especially when you are focusing on growing your macro content, your long form content. So you definitely want to be capturing people into your newsletter versus just sharing all your other funnels. Okay, so now to my third strategy, which I kind of started talking about already, and it does feel a little controversial. So remember how I said not everybody who joins into my email list, however they come in, do they get sent my newsletter? And the reason why, I actually want to invite you to take this analogy, for example. So I think of my email newsletter like a catch basin. So just like a waterfall feature that you would have, in your backyard, not like a true beautiful nature-esque waterfall that you would go see. We're talking about the good old like plastic or whatever fake waterfall you have sitting in your backyard as like a feature. So there's a pump involved and there's recirculating water, okay? So what I'm saying is at the very top, the water that comes and begins to fall down this waterfall, that's the entry points. Those are the different funnels that you can have in your business. So ideally what happens when somebody enters it and they begin the tumble down, if you will, they are going to, based on their behaviors and how they interact in your email sequences and funnels, will determine which direction they go. But at the very end, whether they don't interact at all, or even if they do, the very end, they all land in the same spot, which is the very bottom of this waterfall, the catch basin, where they sit and wait. So imagine like you're a water droplet in like a whole waterfall feature. I don't know. Anyways, so you're sitting in this catch basin waiting for this pump to essentially recirculate you right back to the top so you can take the tumble again. So that's what I think about with my email newsletter, is it's more of a rebound traffic than it is a capture. So again, I do still have a specific funnel and a capture for my newsletter, but if somebody was to join any other funnel, they aren't getting to my newsletter until they've made it to basically the end of their customer journey. And the reason why I strongly suggest you do that is because you want to keep the pertinent information to the person where they are at in your customer journey. So if you are joining, let's say you decide to watch and learn my stop the scroll method, obviously I'm going to capture your email, and essentially it can be a funnel. It is a funnel all in its own. So when you're in that funnel, I want to make sure, and if you're joining it, obviously, or me, my email list for the first time, I want to make sure that that information that you are getting is the only information you're getting so that you can stay focused in your funnel, in your customer journey. You're not being spread, or your attention or focus isn't being spread out while I give you all this other information. Now, it's not to say, like I said, that you still can't be on my newsletter, but it can be its own funnel, its own lane, its own pipeline, separate of the other funnels. To summarize, your newsletter will be segmented to the appropriate audience at the appropriate time, unless somebody just wants to specifically join your newsletter. So my promotional content, or what I'm sharing with you guys, is you can join this funnel, you can join this funnel, or you can join my newsletter, right? It's an option for you to opt in at a certain point. But again, if you join other funnels, you have to wait till that catch basin part to be a part of my newsletter. And then my very last strategy for you is to making sure that what you're talking about and sharing in your newsletter is exclusive. It should feel like if somebody is getting your newsletter or subscribe to your newsletter, or at what point they get your newsletter, it kind of feels like this VIP members only club. And I just automatically think of, and I don't know why I think of this, but like the olden times, like way back when, like we're talking like Bridgerton era, where after like an opera, all the men would go to this club sort kind of thing and drink their whiskey and smoke their cigars, and it was invite only, but you had to be certain status. Anyways, what I'm trying to say is that's kind of, now to be fair, it's like very, very anti-feminist, like not the right way to go in society. However, you want that VIP members only feeling because you're sharing exclusive content. And again, I'm going to talk about some ideas that you can put in your newsletter to make it feel exclusive. Just hold tight. And overall, this exclusivity that you are creating in your newsletter will help you create that FOMO when you're going down and promoting your newsletter. Now, a bonus strategy to you, I literally just, it popped in my brain and I didn't actually write it down on my script, is to choose a theme. And what I kind of mean by that is not necessarily narrow down to a specific, like a very specific theme, but maybe more like a theme of the type and style of content that you're going to share. So, you know, for example, my newsletter is sharing the internal dialogue, my internal dialogue as I grow and build my business from the ground up. So that's kind of the theme. So I'm sharing behind the scenes, I'm sharing what's working, what's not working, what's coming up and coming in like down the pipeline. You're the first people to even find out about what's coming. And then also what's going on in here in almost like a journal entry place, so that as I'm building this thing, this, as I call, passive income making machine, you kind of get to hear like, what is Katelyn, the CEO, thinking and working through while she's growing this business? It's kind of like getting to take a back seat in my car while I drive this thing. You get to join in and be a part and watch me and have conversations with me, if that makes sense. And this might make sense in a little bit when, again, I go over different ideas. But let's talk about the opportunity you have with your newsletter to make money. At the beginning of this video, I said if you're not creating consistent or delivering consistent newsletters to your email list, you're leaving some big money on the table. So what is that monetization opportunity for you with your newsletters? Well, the first one comes down to sponsorships, brand sponsorships, affiliation, marketing, all those types of things. More and more creators obviously are realizing that they don't own their social media, so they're building their own email lists. Whether it's like the influencers, micro influencers, they're building their own email list as a way to make sure that they own their contacts, own their audience in a way, so that they can continue essentially making an income. So these newsletters are a way for people to send out information, for brands to sponsor them, and again, they can still create the income. So for example, on an idea for a newsletter, or somebody who would do this, is if you were to say like my favorite Amazon products for this month, and give a list of all your different products with affiliation links. Obviously, that is just one way of creating a newsletter with some actual monetization behind it. Now, with this said, because more and more creators are realizing that they need a protected way of getting to in front of their audience, more creators are jumping on the email list and email newsletter bandwagon. That means more brands are following suit and are actually looking at sponsoring more newsletter type of content. Now, as newsletters grow, and again, depending on what your type of newsletter is, your audience, all those types of things, one way that you can monetize this is by having some ad space. So meaning other brands, other companies can come in and essentially buy a spot in your newsletter for an ad. So just like on blogs or anything else we see, it's the same goes on your email newsletter. The turnover or conversion, I would say, for these companies is a lot higher because of these engagements, because of the more targeted audience and the one-to-one basis. Now, lastly, a really great opportunity for you to actually make money with sending out content in your newsletter is to actually put like a paywall in front of your newsletter. So what I'm saying is a subscription-based newsletter, meaning that in order to get on your newsletter list or be a part of that, I need to actually pay to be there, and I will get and receive content. Obviously, if you're doing that, there's a lot of more strategy behind that, especially when it comes to the type of content you're sharing. It has to be worthy enough of a price point, obviously. So there needs to be exclusivity beyond exclusivity for this type of paid subscription newsletter. Okay, so you got to this point in the video where you're probably thinking to yourself, okay, Katelyn, like I know I need to make a newsletter or write a newsletter, and I know I need to send it out consistently, but I struggle with what to say or what to put in my newsletter. So here is a list of 8 different ideas for you, especially if you're sitting there struggling with consistency with your newsletters or what to even talk about. The first thing that you need to do before you can decide on a topic or go and run with one of my ideas is you have to ask yourself, what is your intention with your newsletter? Is your intention to, have another product offer in your product suite? Is your intention to just communication, conversation, and stay in communication with your audience? Or is it to share information? What is your intention behind it? I mean, all creators at the end of the day are, have the intention of conversion down the road into a paid client, right? That is everybody's intention. You don't need to pick that as your intention. But what I really want you to understand within yourself is, what is my intention as far as how do I want to show up? Now, the next thing that you want to ask yourself is, what kind of tone of voice, or tone do I want to set with my newsletter? Because this can hugely influence what type of content you share. If you want a more strategic, masculine, this is what's happening style tone of your newsletter, you're probably not going to write it in a more personable way, or a more with personal updates kind of thing. And then lastly, you need to ask yourself is, how often do I want to send out a newsletter? Or even better is, how often does my audience want to receive a newsletter? Now, before you go and jump to thinking, well, I don't want to, bug my audience, I don't want to flood their inbox and, whatever, just remember that if your newsletter follows these principles that I just shared in this video, plus using one of the ideas I'm about to share, your audience won't be thinking about that. It's more about the type of information that you have in the newsletter and how often does that information need to be shared. If you're going to be doing some kind of market review or analysis, it might take a little bit for you to collect the data. So offering or sending out a newsletter once a week or daily or something like that, just that volume does not match your intention. So making sure that those two match is going to be the right timing for your newsletter. Now, with a general idea, if you're still sitting there, don't know what you want or how often you want to send these out, is you can always start with once a month, because once a month, as far as my research goes, shows to be the most consistent as far as the analytics go, as far as your opens and performance of newsletters. That's the easiest, once a month, pretty simple to get that out. Moving to, after that, more into a weekly basis is going to be a lot more doable. Now, daily is a whole different thing. Obviously, that if you're sending out newsletters daily, it's because that content needs to be shared daily. Okay, so real fast here, let's go into 8 different ideas that you can use and put into your email newsletters. The first one being really simple and just sharing links. Now, what I suggest is that you kind of create a template for yourself, whether it's just a certain look or, different columns, and each month, week, whatever, you're just updating that template with new information. So this would work really good if you have multiple platforms, multiple pieces of content, or perhaps you have different products to offer, all that kind of stuff. You can just share links that will take people and, essentially be like a traffic person. What is that? Like a traffic officer, and direct traffic into the other places. Now, here's the thing with this one is if you're sitting here with, after all these ideas and you have zero clue on what to do, start here. This is a really great place to start. However, it is not one that I recommend because it feels really spammy and it lacks communication, community, and conversation. So those again are key indicators for performance of your newsletter. Now, the next really simple idea for you is just personal updates. Again, this is going to depend a lot on your brand, your industry, and again, your tone is if you really even want to include personal information, but sharing personal updates is something that your audience actually wants. They want to feel like you are a real person. So again, if this aligns with your brand, then definitely include some personal updates. If you are a brand that has more of a third person voice, tone of voice, maybe this isn't something that you want to do. But again, if you are that type of brand, I just encourage you to think about switching your newsletters to be a first person so that they can see and get to know the face behind this brand. Because everybody wants to know, like, who is that person? Who's that photographer behind that camera? Who is the person running the show over there? And if you come in with that tone of voice, it's just gonna be so good for your audience. Okay, the next one is sharing some insider tips. So if you know something about your industry, your niche, that your audience does not, put it in your email newsletter. So these insider tips can be anything from like hot new trends that are coming up or trending audios on TikTok. That would be a really good newsletter if that's your niche. Like, take the idea and run, okay? Next up is market reviews or case studies. Now, this one is, again, very dependent on your industry, but if there is a way for you to essentially gather information about the industry as a whole, so maybe if you're like a business to business style of business, you might want to do some market reviews or case studies. Another great one is for in the case studies, again, based on your niche, I would just use myself as an example. Something that I could do as a more of a case study is not only just doing my own client case studies, but maybe I would take a look at, these bigger influencers in the digital marketing space, or even Fortune 500 brands, and go through their systems and processes and just being like, this is what I think they're up to. This is why it's working. This is definitely what's not working. They should consult with me and change what's working. That style of content when it comes to market reviews or case studies would perform really well. Now, the next idea is something that I kind of talked about earlier in the video, is just creating exclusive content. So an example could be is where, let's say I would be making these YouTube videos, and stop recording the video, but then re-record a separate video of like behind the scenes of like, this is, off camera information that only you get because you're on my newsletter. So exclusive content, again, makes really well for newsletters because it creates a little bit of FOMO and information that people are seeking, and it's not just you kind of talking and hoping somebody listens. The next idea would be sharing some kind of going over some data within your industry and updating some statistics. So right away I go to real estate, investing, housing, mortgage, that kind of stuff. So essentially sharing some data that is out there, information that's going on, and just, you know, watching those trends happen and advising accordingly. The next one is behind the scenes. Now, this is something that I encourage almost everybody to make sure that they include in their newsletters, and a behind the scenes action where if you're coming out with something new, your newsletter are the first people to get it. So that's how I treat my newsletter, for example, but it's like behind the scenes of the business. What's going on that people don't really know about, what's working in your business, what's not working in your business, or even just like a behind the scenes of come with me and learn more about what I do style of content. And then the last one is sharing predictions. Now, it's kind of interesting because I found myself near the end of 2022 getting a ton of prediction emails, and I was so drawn to them. I was opening up all of them, or I should say most of them, and that's when it kind of clued in to me as saying this would make a really good newsletter because people want to be the first on something. And if you, again, have that insider information or you can predict something that will be a hit, people want to get in on that fast. So if you have some kind of niche or industry or business where you can predict what's going to happen within your niche or industry, then definitely take that and put it into your newsletter. Now, I hope that this video has definitely inspired you to get going on your email newsletters if you haven't already, and given you some more ideas that you can put in your newsletter, as well as strategies to grow your newsletter. Overall though, if you liked this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel so that you can learn how to generate more leads, more cash automatically, so you can create your very own passive income money making machine. Woo! And don't forget to do a couple of things. First is subscribe to my newsletter so you can join this circle of high-level entrepreneurs and hear what's happening in the industry of sales and marketing and funnels, plus learn more about me and what I do and the behind-the-scenes action. Guys, I literally just finished talking about all this information about what's included in your newsletter. Well, guess what? You can better believe my newsletter is full of it. Guys, this is literally how I grew my newsletter. Okay, now the second thing that you're going to do is go watch this video that's going to talk to you about growing your email list. Remember, email list and newsletter, two different things. But once you're done with that, then again, come back and meet me here again next week for a brand new video. Talk to you then. Bye.